Hi, my name is Yolanda Wortham. For my Lead the Discussion assignment, I chose Winter Dreams by F. Scott Fitzgerald. You can find this story on page 965 of the Norton Anthology of American Literature, Volume 2. I chose this particular story because I have had a love-hate relationship with Fitzgerald since I first read The Great Gatsby in high school, and I emphasize the fact that I both love and hate Fitzgerald. So if my presentation strays into satire, I apologize, but try to keep in mind that this was the man who ruined romantic literature for me with his cynical portrayal of love, relationship, and social class. If you've read Gatsby, then you already have a good understanding of the type of tale Winter Dreams is. If you haven't, allow me to paint you the happy picture. Imagine the story of Cinderella, except replace the fairy godmother with unpleasant labor or toil, possibly even breaking the law. Turn the prince into a privileged socialite, perhaps an heiress, and imagine no matter how happy and blissful the story seems to be going, a heart-shattering or ideal-crushing blow to the soul is all that awaits you in the end. All of that wrapped in hauntingly beautiful characters, dialogue, and plot. A world just slightly estranged from the one we humans wish to see. In other words, Fitzgerald is the romantic type of author who builds beauty and love into his plot. But as a self-proclaimed cynical idealist, he tends to burn it all to the ground by the end of the story. Of course, I can't bring myself to fully hate Fitzgerald's cynicism, because it does help him drive home his point. We all have idealized images of love, relationships, class, wealth, ambition, and how we fit into this world. Fitzgerald utilizes such images as themes and brings each of these commonly false preconceptions crashing down on the reader's head, mercilessly. All of which he overlays on top of the opulent backdrop of the times before the Great Depression, the Roaring Twenties. Let me show you what I mean. Winter Dreams is the story of 14-year-old Dexter, the son of a mildly successful grocery store owner. He works as a golf caddy. One day he falls in love with a wealthy, pretentious snob of a girl named Judy Jones, who is quote-unquote golfing. Why does he fall in love with this little monster? She looks pretty. Fitzgerald's cynicism shines through from that very first scene, shattering the purity of young love. Dexter desires the girl, in spite of watching her go after her nurse with a golf club, all because of her beauty. The deep romance that will run through the plot has already been revealed to be shallow at its root. Now, Dexter quits his job and decides he simply must become worthy of her. Skip a few years, Dexter has become successful via the apparently booming dry cleaning industry of the 1920s. Now, don't get too excited for our dashing protagonist, because you're going to think he's scum soon. And also, Fitzgerald likes to give his characters a taste of the American dream, and indeed, in the 20s, it seemed as if everyone had an opportunity for success, so he could realistically allow his characters to sample it. But don't mistake Fitzgerald as a kind-hearted soul, because I believe he does this only to show the futility of the pursuit of success. Dexter may find temporary financial fulfillment near the beginning of the story, but Fitzgerald does not make a habit of giving his characters long-lasting happiness, ever. He was too much of a realist for things like, happiness. Dexter, now a wealthy man, goes to play golf at the club he once caddied for. One of the men he is playing with gets hit with a golf ball to the stomach. Who does this golf ball belong to, other than the lipstick-wearing sociopath of Dexter's dreams, Judy Jones? And this we see that Fitzgerald was not a true realist, but an angry romantic. His characters were tied together from the outset, but not with the red string of passion, but with a black thread of some far more sinister universal force. After nailing an old man in the stomach with one of the harder sports balls, Judy Jones does not seem all that apologetic, but that doesn't bother the men. They all talk about how delightful she looks. After sunset, Dexter goes swimming in Black Bear Lake, and that black thread leads him to Judy once again. She asks him to pilot her motorboat so she can surf behind, and then she invites him to dinner. And thus, Fitzgerald sets the irresistible trap, and a romance outside of Dexter's native class, and with a woman he cannot see for the terror she truly is, begins. At dinner, Judy tells him about how awful she feels because a man she really liked turned out to be poor. Unsurprisingly, her distaste for men born in Dexter's social class does not deter him. In her defense, she does say it wouldn't be so bad if he had told her straight away, but she had always imagined him to be rich, so it was a little too shocking. Less in her defense is the fact that the moment Dexter assured her that he was the richest man his age around, she decides that now would be an excellent moment to kiss him. She's interested in him for his wallet, and he for her beauty. Both are fairly shallow reasons to love. But that's just how Fitzgerald rolls. The weaker the base, the harder he can bring it all tumbling down on his protagonist's head. Dexter dates Judy on and off for the next 18 months. Now, Judy isn't one for monogamous relationships, but Dexter hopes that one day he'll be the one who convinces her to settle. Not long after the beginning of their romance, a rumor begins to circulate of her having gotten engaged to a New Yorker. Dexter's heart is broken. But fear not. After a little while, Judy gets bored with her exotic toy and returns to Dexter. This is an interesting commentary that Fitzgerald is making on the new freedom that is emerging for women in the time period. In the past, dating multiple men would have seriously harmed a woman's reputation and status. But now, not so much. Now, it's possible Fitzgerald wasn't commenting on emerging equality, but rather implying that beautiful people get to do whatever they want without repercussion, but I lean towards the less obvious truth. Women's suffrage was working. It takes a year and a half for Dexter to realize he has no future with Judy, because she's a straight-up player. Ignoring her litany of other flaws, many of which were almost certainly worse than her lack of fidelity, he gives up on her. So Dexter finds a new love, Irene Schreier. They get engaged, time passes, and it almost seems as if Dexter has forgotten Judy. But we know Fitzgerald, and we know he doesn't tie off stories with a pretty little bow. There was no way Dexter was going to settle for a decent, kind, loving individual. One day, while still very much engaged, he runs into Judy. They go on a drive together. Judy appears to be depressed, and she asks Dexter to marry her. She knows he's with Irene, but she tells him, in between tears, that she can't believe he would leave her for another woman. Dexter's flame is suddenly rekindled, and he follows her inside the house. Remember when I said you would think he's scum soon? This is why. His shallow feelings lead him to caustically harm a woman who might actually love him. The torrid 1-month-long love affair crushes Irene and her family. That's right, 1 month of bliss, and then it fizzles off into pure nothing. At this point, Dexter is so fed up with his successful business but ruinous personal life that he joins the army and goes to war. Skip 7 years, and Dexter is home. He now lives in New York. A man named Devlin enters his office and mentions that the wife of his best friend is from Dexter's hometown. Guess who? The black thread strikes again. Judy Sims, previously Judy Jones, is the woman in question. Devlin then goes on to explain Judy's, frankly, terrible life. Her husband, Lud Sims, is a cheating alcoholic. She stays home with the kids. She has become old. 29 was ancient back in those days, and she has lost the sheen of her youth. By the time Devlin finishes explaining that Judy has become an ordinary housewife, albeit of the tortured variety, Dexter weeps. He feels that he has lost his dream and passion. The romantic that he used to be is forever gone. And that's where the story ends. Not exactly a happy note, is it? Well, that's because Fitzgerald was not a happy writer. He was an alcoholic who married a girl with poor mental health and accustomed to a certain kind of lifestyle. In other words, he was blinded by love and, in a way, married his own Judy. The Great Gatsby was not a bestseller until after Fitzgerald's death. In life, he struggled to support his wife, Zelda, and her constant need for opulence. It's not unfair to say that she drove him to the bottle and cynicism, and alas, the affairs did begin. Not by Zelda, of course. She was hospitalized for her mental issues. No. Fitzgerald, the romantic, driven from love to a detached pessimism, had 2 notable affairs. One with Louis Moraine, a Hollywood starlet, and the other with Sheila Graham, a movie columnist. And then he died an alcoholic. Almost sounds like the end of a Fitzgerald story, doesn't it? Despite his talent, despite his charm, despite his success, Fitzgerald is never quite happy. In many of his ambitions, he succeeds except for the one that, to him, truly mattered: love. In this way, Fitzgerald helped define an entire disenfranchised generation of Americans. Is his work still relevant today as anything other than fictional history? Yes, but I take it as more of a warning than anything else. To actually give in to his cynical perspectives could be to embrace misery all the more quickly. All of this said, I'd like to end with a quote by Fitzgerald. I'm a romantic. A sentimental person thinks things will last. A romantic person hopes against hope that they won't. Even his definition of romance was cynical.